Welcome to Re-Review, where we watch movies from our past with a perspective from today. Your hosts are Matt, Bobby, and Austin, and we love the films from our youth, so we're taking a look back to see if they still hold up. On this episode, we are discussing Lucky Number Slevin. Released in 2006, it was directed by Paul McQueen, starring Josh Hartnett, Sir Ben Kingsley, Bruce Willis, Lucy Liu, and Morgan Freeman. This movie tells the story of a mistaken identity that leads down a rabbit hole with the mob. Now, this is a fair warning. We're spoiling a 16-year-old movie, so if you haven't seen it, we will be revealing key plot points. Matt, what led you to select this film?
I have pretty fond memories of this movie. I never watched it in theaters. It was I think, under the radar type thing. Even watching the trailer again, I definitely think it would have been a movie I would have probably said pass on just from the look of the trailer. But I ended up watching it on DVD, if I remember correctly, and I ended up kind of enjoying it. It kind of had like a vibe that it was in a genre that doesn't really get played in too often.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's not quite a crime noir type movie, but it definitely has that vibe. And, it's a gangster movie, so you kind of have that. And obviously it has some other elements to it that I feel tend to attract me. And so when I finally did get around to watching, I enjoyed it, and it's been a minute. So I feel like whenever I would look up cast members for other shows that we've done, it would always pop up in everyone's, IMDb listing. And I would be like, oh yeah, that movie. And I felt like that was a good candidate for us to go back and take a look at.
Yeah. Is there another movie where Josh Hartnett has a broken nose and maybe he's got a bandage on it? I don't know if I'm having some weird flashback in my head, but when I thought of this movie, I thought he had like a bandage across his nose, and that wasn't in the entire movie. And I said, what is in my mind? I was trying to figure it out.
Well, he was in Sin City, but someone else had a bandage on their nose.
What it is?
Yeah, I think that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly the memories are all fading things together, but I was expecting a bandage. Can you believe that's the thing I was hanging on the whole time? I was like, where is the bandage on his broken nose?
It probably would have helped the believability of the broken nose.
Cut down the continuity for sure.
Bobby, how'd you feel watching this film again after such a long time?
Well, the one thing that struck me from the very, very opening titles is that this movie is just very artfully done. I just liked how there just seemed to be like a lot of thought behind it, and it was pretty well paced, and the music did a pretty good job of keeping that pace up. But I just really liked. I guess if there was one word for the production design of this movie, it would be wallpaper.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
It just there's just all these crazy like florals, and to me it's quite brilliant from a filmmaking point of view. It's a good way to add a lot of interest to your scenes without spending like a ton of money on set pieces. So, I just thought
that's a really good point, because no matter what was going on, it was hard not to be fixated on, oh yeah, look at this room. It's a very unique, different setup than the last room we were,
There's a lot of really neat visual stuff in this movie that I wouldn't expect. This movie isn't known for its visual flair, but it did have a lot. So for example, there's one shot of Josh Hartnett's Slevin character where he's got a reflection right next to him. And so there was a lot of visual cues to the duality of his character, and how, not only is he actually, playing a different person than who he is, but everybody thinks he's somebody else. And so there's a lot of really neat visual stuff in this movie that I really liked from the opening credits on. And I do think that, there's not a lot of movies with opening credits these days, but I do like the fact that there's and this one had the full opening credits, but I like having just the name of the movie at the front of it.
Well, it's strange you mentioned the opening credits, because maybe it's, living in the world we have now where these things hit us so quick and you just jump into the movie. I felt like it took forever. I was like, oh my gosh, how much longer are we going to wait until we actually get into the film? And even when we get the little bit of story with Bruce Willis's character, Good Cat, doing the bad thing, and we didn't even know at that point. But it was like, okay. And then next thing you know, we had more credits coming. So at that point, I was like, all right, how much more of this are we going to get?
Yeah, from the very beginning, this was the kind of movie that tells you, like, okay, this is going to be a mystery, and this is going to be a movie where we're going to give you like little snippets as you go along, and you're not going to know what's actually going on until the end of this thing.
So Matt, what was the first point where you knew they were lying to you? Because I think it took a while for me to try to understand what was happening. As much as I knew the kid looked just like Hartnett, I was ignoring that part of it and trying to understand the path, right?
So this is one of the things that, going back in the first time I watched it, I think this would qualify on a Watch Mojo list of things that spoiled the movie before it even came out. And if you actually went and looked at the poster, and I believe it was also the case for the DVD and Blu-ray, on the cover of it, you actually see Slevin in silhouette holding like a silenced gun. Because like when I went into it, I was under the impression it was very much a, and I guess that's the spoiler part of it, but mistaken identity. He had nothing to do with it. He was just some guy. But if you looked at that from the get-go, you would know there was some other aspect to it, because up until the turn, because the turn happens suddenly for the most part, nothing for the duration of the movie up until he's in the apartment with was Isaac was his name. There's no real indication that he is, who he actually is. And then the turn just kind of happens. I remember when I watched it, even though I'd seen that, it was still kind of not a shock, but I was kind of taken aback by the sudden brutality of it, that he could just so suddenly just, shoot him twice in the chest or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do remember being taken aback by it the first time I watched it, but there was that little bit of a spoiler going into it that he wasn't just some guy.
Yeah, that was a good point. I was kind of surprised by that moment too.
Definitely, I'm agreeing the same, because I think there was an element of feeling, in a way, the softness that he presented himself as a character. He meets this girl, he's in a terrible bind, and it feels like he's being super vulnerable and be like, look, someone's out to get you. Maybe we're gonna try to figure out a way to not have this happen, and clow. And it was just like, oh, all right, here we are.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons why they introduced the narrative of what was it, ataraxia? Because if you're really watching it, you're kind of like, man, this guy's really chill about a lot of things, about the fact that he supposedly got mugged and punched in the face, and his girlfriend cheated on him, and he's being asked, to murder someone and to deliver $33,000. Like, he's very chill about the whole thing. And of course, his character is in the know. He's planning this whole thing out. So of course he's all cool about it. But, I am curious if the whole ataraxia thing was true and he is just super chill. Because, I mean, when they cut back to the flashback of him as a kid, he doesn't seem to be all that bothered about having a gun pointed at his head.
Yeah, that's true.
Part of me thinks it's a little bit true.
Just to establish that for the character so he could be so cold-hearted.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I really liked about his character was like how he really played against type. And I mean, like, of course they're trying to throw off the fact that he's an assassin, but I mean, I really liked how he's kind of like this quick talking, kind of like sharp tongue, smart mouth kind of guy who.
Are we making an assumption that he's done a lot more murders prior to?
Yeah, I am.
Is there evidence for that?
Well, but we know for a fact that he sniped Morgan Freeman's son.
Oh, thank you. Good point.
So at the very least, worst case scenario, that was his first kill, but that was way too clean.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because I mean, there's that element of hoping, like, Bruce Willis's character is like, oh, we're gonna do the long con, and it'll be 20 years from now, and you'll be grown up, and I'll train you, and then we'll do everything to get rid of these two bad guys. But you're right, he was probably full of murders.
Yeah, probably from a young age too, because I can't imagine Mr. Goodcat is the greatest parental figure as far as I can't see him playing catch. Probably. I imagine that sequence from like Kick-Ass with Big Daddy and.
Yeah, I was absolutely thinking Kick-Ass too.
How do you explain his cannon of an arm that can murder a bookie then?
Yeah, no, that was one one baseball to the head. I mean, if that were really the case, there'd be a lot of dead bodies on baseball fields.
Maybe that was just the surprising blow with the gunshots coming afterward.
And now you're explaining away the baseball murder. The thing, though, and you mentioned this at one point, and I don't know if you felt it throughout the film, but there was a lot of exposition, right? I felt like they were telling us stuff more often than showing us.
Yeah, and sometimes it wasn't as subtle as it probably should have been. I think I pointed out while we were watching it when he was in car with I can't remember what their two names are, but with the rabbi's men.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah.
Corey Stoll, who was one of the actors.
Yeah, where he just giving up they're giving up all the information about.
It's like, this is the building where they live, and the other building is right across the way where they can look at each other.
Well, and I kind of understood that with like had they had already, because I'm pretty sure that was the first time that they had met was in that instance. So I was like, man, that's a lot of personal information you're giving out to a guy that, for all you know, is going to get capped or something as soon as he gets up there. Like
maybe that's why they felt comfortable. We could tell him he's a dead man.
I suppose so. But I do feel like there was some exposition. I feel like sometimes it was kind of warranted. I feel like it was like probably the most properly utilized at the end with the detective talking over the phone, and kind of, it kind of had that jigsaw moment, right? Where like the music's kind of ramping up and you're kind of getting like, oh, well, this and that and this, and kind of summarizing. Now, most of it we kind of pretty much already knew at that point, since we did know that he was the son. But it did kind of had that well crafted with music and editing and montaging, type of exposition. Some of the earlier stuff, not so much, but that was kind of like the weird thing too, because they filmed some of the scenes, like when the two bosses were talking to Good Cat separately, and they were kind of using that as a flashback later on in the movie when they're both tied up. And I was like, it feels weird that this wasn't earlier in the movie. I get they're doing a flashback, but I'm like, does this really reveal anything? Really? I mean, it tells you what's going to happen, but it just felt like a stylistic choice more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the love story that they built in, this arc of, I'm just thinking getting to the end. The reason he would never think that Bruce Willis's Mr. Good Cat would be okay with him falling in love with someone, so he does a fake sacrifice. How do we feel about that path, Bobby? Did you enjoy the way that worked?
I really enjoyed like the first half of that relationship in between the two of them, when it was kind of like, this appears to be on the outside like innocent and interesting, and she's clearly got an interest in him because he's like a little bit more interesting than what she seems to pass every day, although she's oddly connected by being the coroner. But I mean,
very convenient.
Yes. Once it got to the point to where he's clearly an assassin and she's good with it, that kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. I was like, I'm not sure how this works anymore. Like, she wants him to be James Bond, but now he's more one of the villains than James Bond at that point.
Is he a villain though? He's getting revenge for the murder of his family. That, John Wick's killed more people than that for a dog in a car. So
I think there's easier ways to get revenge for your family. You don't have to bag and tag them and like make it so brutal.
If you use the John Wick example, this man is a saint.
Yes. Well, like he
didn't do any gun punches, like, or
no gun fu
punches and shoots at the same time.
So just chiming in a little bit on the whole relationship aspect or whatever, I do agree with Bobby about the whole aspect of it feeling sort of weird that she was okay with it. Now, I do get that he explained to her, before everything went down, he probably said what his story was, and so that probably kind of bought into it. But the quickness of the relationship and how, like, it seemed like she was leaving, like, they're not going on a weekend trip. She's leaving her life for this guy she just met. Like,
yeah, that part of it, like
she saw his penis and was hooked. I mean, that's how they opened this, right?
That part of it didn't, like, I mean, not the penis part, but I mean the ending part, like that part didn't really like, I had a little bit of an issue with the very end, and it wasn't super clear to me that Mr. Good Cat was in on it at the very end, and I was a little bit confused. Like it wasn't super clear, like, okay, here's what's happening. Like they're having like a condoned, like, okay, I mean, what is up with them? Are they gonna go off and have a normal life now? Or, you know,
I mean,
okay,
I was ready for more murders at that point. I was like, oh, he's gonna figure out a way to get both of them. In fact, I'm still convinced he will, because why wouldn't he?
that's part of what I'm wondering, like what the deal was. I mean, they didn't really talk about, okay, like his whole agenda was to avenge his family, and then just what after that? Just like go have like a normal life with Lucy Liu, or like what do they do? Like,
it sounds like you want the part 2 with the house and the white picket fence, and they got some kids, and turns out he still wants to commit murders, and now they have
I just want the end credit scene.
Well,
like like give me the shawarma, like show me what's happening. Like,
so if I were to interpret the whole way that it kind of went down, it's a duality between Good Cat's situation and his situation. That's just why they did the flashback. It's Good Cat, for being a hired assassin, couldn't kill a kid, or at least that kid, and ended up basically raising him. So he understands that even if you're a murderer for hire, you can still have a soft spot somewhere.
Oh, you can have love in your heart.
You can still have some form of love. And so he understood the situation. That's just why he said he would understand. And whatever happens after that, I think that Slevin, I can't remember if they actually said what his name was back in the flashbacks as a kid.
no, I was looking up, and it looks like the kid is listed as Henry.
Oh yeah, that's right. Henry. Yep, you're right. So Henry, not Slevin, Henry. I think he saw some form of normality with her, but I do have an issue with her as a character, though.
Oh, here we go.
And
Yes,
I enjoyed the back and forth between the two. It was a snappy dialogue, which was energetic. Maybe too much so at times, but my biggest problem with it is like and I didn't think this back when I watched it, because I don't think this term even existed. But when I saw her, all I could think was Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And the way the relationship
sure.
developed to the end, it just solidified my thinking on that. The fact that she didn't have any problems and just went along with it, and it was just that kind of situation.
Wait, was this pre or post Garden State?
Oh, you're challenging my memory now. This had to be after Garden State, right?
All right. I mean, okay, because when you put it in that context, she totally fits that role.
She absolutely fits that
Plus,
stereotype.
she provided a lot of, convenient pushing the plot forward. She's got a cool flip phone camera and is a ninja inside of the elevator taking photos of Good Cat.
and a Columbo whiz wonderkind, like, fanatic.
I do want to talk the tech stuff just really quick, because there was something that bothered me, and I don't know how you both felt about it, but they would keep cutting to scenes where it would like drop to 10 FPS.
Oh God.
Or something.
Oh.
I was just like, wow. I know it was the narration was happening and they're trying to like show the story, but it got extra choppy, and it wasn't like it was one moment, it was several moments that I was like, my eyes hurt looking at this.
Yeah, that's the whole, like, it's a flashback now. Let's change the visual aesthetic of it so that you know that this isn't part of the normal continuity.
Why punish our eyes like that?
I just had Ocean's 11 flashbacks of that one scene with Matt Damon, and it was like a little, I got that one at least a little bit because it was supposed to show the sleight of hand for the most part. This one, I just didn't get it, and the fact that it kept going hurt so much. I was just, why? I guess that was just an early 2000s thing.
That people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't see it in any like now, if there's a flashback now, I've seen slow motion and stuff, but I certainly haven't seen like the stuttering kind of thing.
I know if there's a flashback, like in The Matrix 4, they just play the old movies.
That is
Sorry,
true.
so sorry to dig on The Matrix 4. So in terms of, looking at this film and how it worked, I'm kind of feeling like this could be remade, tightened up, shore up a lot of the things that, we pointed out that could be issues, especially with how they approach the story, maybe extend the length of the movie a little bit so they could show us more than tell us. Would you go for a remake today?
Bobby's like, no. Do not cross that 2-hour mark.
No, definitely don't cross it. The running time was perfect as it was.
Me personally, I don't know if I could see a remake of this. Like, I mean, maybe I could if you approached it differently, but I think that stylistically it's you couldn't really change it without it either becoming a very boring movie or a Jason Bourne movie all of a sudden.
No, yeah.
I do, however, strangely enough, would kind of like to see a sequel of it. I don't know about the white picket fences, but I would like to see, I don't know, call it like Bad Dog or something, Good Cat and Bad Dog or something, like just some like expansion on, potentially what the characters could do. Like the one thing I will say about this movie, if nothing else, it had a very interesting set of characters along with the very talented cast that they brought.
Yeah, I want to talk about the stellar cast in this movie. Ben Kingsley, Morgan Freeman, Stanley Tucci, all in the same movie. That's very good, and a lot of the other like side guys are really good too. So
It sounds expensive.
Yeah, I was impressed with the cast in this thing. I mean, just to have Morgan Freeman and Ben Kingsley together was pretty much a treat, and it was kind of a bummer that Stanley Tucci was kind of off to the side and had his own thing going on. And then, Robert Forster was really good, and Danny Aiello played just a really small part of it. So there was a lot of scenery to chew for a lot of really good actors.
So whose performance did you enjoy the most?
I like Stanley Tucci a lot, but I mean, I like him in a whole lot of other things. Ben Kingsley was really good.
Hey, have some respect, sir.
Sir, yes,
Ben
you're
Kingsley.
correct, and he was even credited as Sir Ben Kingsley. You're correct about that. So my mistake, but yeah, it was a good all round.
For having this star-studded cast, why does IMDb leave Bruce Willis off of the main listing? I guess I was surprised by that because I was saying, oh, he's a super major character here, and they only list 3 names.
So on their thing, it says top billed cast, and there's 4: Josh Hartnett, Ben Kingsley, Morgan Freeman, Lucy Liu, and then in all cast, he's the first listing in the all cast list.
I mean, maybe it was either a legal thing or maybe it was I don't know. Bruce Willis does that sometimes. Some weird.
You've been in too many movies, Bruce. We can't tell the people you're in this one.
It's funny. Like going back to your question about performance, I think that there was a lot of strong performances, but some of them I was expecting from Morgan Freeman, Sir Ben Kingsley, Stanley Tucci. Like I kind of expect that from them, and I think they all kind of brought it. I think that even Bruce Willis, like I said, he usually puts in about 5% effort these days. I think this was at least 15 or 20. I actually was kind of before the turn. I actually enjoyed Josh Hartnett and his character, the way that they kind of played it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bombastic character or performance, whatever, but is a very unique way of doing that character, I think, because they could have gone, the route of just a bumbling guy who, quote unquote, doesn't know what's going on. But because they did give him that, devil may care, personality with was anorexia, I think it really worked, especially when he was having dialogue. I mean, he's in scenes with Lucy Liu and Morgan Freeman and Sir Ben Kingsley and, Stanley Tucci. And like, he bounces off pretty well for most of them. I mean, he has the kind of smart ass attitude. Yeah. And I'm surprised he didn't get shot in the face by the rabbi the first time he made that comment, within seconds of walking in the room. But I actually enjoyed his performance in this, and it's a shame you don't really see him in a lot of stuff, especially in a starring role.
I'm trying to think, of all. I can't name all the Josh Hartnett movies because you're right. I can't think of what else he stood out in per se.
Pearl Harbor.
Is that okay?
You went straight to Pearl. I was thinking like H2O, but you went to Pearl Harbor.
I mean, maybe this is an excuse to kind of go back and see the other things that he's acted in, because I'll agree with that in terms of being that enjoyable and the playing off, especially creating that dynamic of I'm this character that you're not supposed to know, and I'm going to be an asshole, but you're going to respect me because I'm not cowering at your feet like all the other people, who work for you and things like that. So I do have to agree with that.
I would say if you are going to watch a Josh Hartnett movie, one of the ones I remember and enjoy the most is probably 30 Days of Night, I believe. Yeah, 30 Days of Night, the vampire movie.
Oh, vampire film. Okay, I'm in for that.
It's very interesting, and I think he did a pretty good job on that one.
Well, I think it's time to ask the question. Matt, you recommending this film?
I think that if you happen to come across it on Netflix or something like that, and you're looking for something entertaining to watch with a good cast, I think it's worth watching. I don't know if I would go throw down $20 or $30 to buy this, but I definitely think it's a nice little maybe Saturday night watch, grab a beer or something.
$20 or $30. Ooh, that's like the 4K Blu-ray. Bobby, are you telling people to watch this one?
I'm not buying the 4K Blu-ray, but I was pretty entertained by this, and the cinematography, and it's very cinematic looking. I was very impressed with set design and all the acting, and I think it's a pretty good package, and so I really liked it. But in terms of recommending it, I mean, if you can do something else while you're, have the TV on,
These are very strange endorsements here, because it's a little bit of like, yeah, you should watch it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I feel like it's one of these where maybe, a friend invited you over. Hey, let's watch a movie. Let's watch Lucky Number Slevin. Oh, I've never seen that. Okay. To go out of your way, like really go out of your way for it, I'm all right. Like, it was a thing we did, and it'll be a thing that you do if you decide to do it. But this, don't necessarily drag yourself because you have to actually watch this film. So we're all in that middling place here on this one. A little bit different than normal, but we'll take it. As always, thank you so much for listening, and remember, there was a time.